Imagine standing inside a prehistoric desert while giant saber-toothed predators silently move across the burning landscape. Near dark rivers, enormous crocodile-like amphibians wait beneath the surface, ready to attack anything that gets too close. Volcanoes erupt in the distance, filling the sky with ash and smoke. Every direction looks dangerous. Yet strangely, the oceans nearby appear calm, quiet, and almost peaceful. For almost all of Earth's history, the oceans were the most terrifying place imaginable. But during one forgotten chapter of prehistory, the exact opposite became true. Land became so deadly that entering the water actually improved your chances of survival. The real mystery is this: how dangerous does Earth need to become for the oceans to feel safer than the land itself? And what happened next would eventually trigger the deadliest extinction event in Earth's history. Most people assume ancient oceans were always worse than dry land. After all, prehistoric seas were filled with giant predators, strange reptiles, and massive sharks. Land usually seems safer by comparison. However, during the late Permian period, this balance completely changed. The land became a brutal wasteland filled with terrifying predators, unbearable heat, and environmental collapse. This raises several disturbing questions. What transformed Earth into such a horrifying place? Why were the oceans strangely empty compared to later prehistoric eras? And what kinds of creatures ruled the planet before the dinosaurs even existed? This forgotten world was called the Lopingian Epoch, and it looked nothing like modern Earth. By the end of this terrifying age, almost all life on the planet would nearly vanish forever. Around 260 million years ago, Earth looked completely alien. Almost every continent was connected into the giant supercontinent called Pangaea, while a massive ocean named Panthalassa covered most of the planet. Days lasted only 22 hours, the moon orbited closer to Earth, and temperatures were far hotter than today. Surprisingly, the oceans were relatively peaceful because most giant marine predators had already disappeared after earlier extinction events. Meanwhile, life on land became deadlier with passing centuries. Long before dinosaurs ruled Earth, another group of predators controlled the planet with terrifying efficiency. Earlier extinction events had already wiped out many dominant animals that once ruled the late Permian world. Their disappearance left entire ecosystems empty and unstable. Nature quickly filled that vacuum with something even more dangerous. Over millions of years, a new generation of apex predators evolved to dominate the harsh landscapes of Pangaea. These killers were called the Gorgonopsids, and they transformed prehistoric land into a nightmare. The Gorgonopsids looked like something created from several predators combined together. They possessed long, narrow skulls, muscular bodies, sharp claws, and enormous saber teeth that extended from their mouths like daggers. At first glance, they resembled saber-toothed cats such as Smilodon, but they were far older and far stranger. Unlike mammals, these creatures belonged to a primitive group called therapsids. They were distant relatives of mammals, yet they lacked many features seen in later warm-blooded hunters. Everything about them appeared specialized for one purpose alone: hunting and killing prey as efficiently as possible. Among all Gorgonopsids, one predator stood above the rest. Its name was Inostrancevia. This massive animal measured more than 11 feet long and weighed as much as a large bear. Despite its enormous size, Inostrancevia was surprisingly fast and agile. Powerful limbs allowed it to chase prey across dry floodplains, forests, and deserts spread across prehistoric Russia and parts of Africa. Fossils suggest that this predator adapted to several environments, making it one of the most successful hunters of the late Permian. Its most terrifying feature was its mouth. Inostrancevia possessed giant serrated saber teeth capable of slicing deeply into flesh. Paleontologists believe these teeth caused catastrophic blood loss within minutes. Some researchers think it hunted similarly to Smilodon by targeting the neck and throat of prey. Others suggest it relied on repeated slashing attacks until victims collapsed from shock and bleeding. Either way, escaping such an attack would have been almost impossible, and this predator was not alone. Gorgonopsids spread across huge portions of Earth, including Africa, Russia, and Asia. Entire ecosystems revolved around them. Herbivores constantly lived under threat because nearly every region contained its own species of giant saber-toothed hunter. Some were smaller and faster, while others relied on brute strength. Together, they turned the late Permian into one of the most predator-dominated periods in Earth history. South Africa became especially terrifying because it hosted a family of giant gorgonopsids known as the Rubiginae. These predators possessed enormous skulls, thick reinforced bones, and deeply serrated teeth designed for tearing through muscle and hide. One species, named Rubigia, reached sizes comparable to modern tigers and small bears. Its skull was heavily built for grappling struggling prey before delivering fatal bites. Fossils suggest these animals often shared territory with other giant predators, creating environments where competition and violence were constant. But the gorgonopsids were only part of the problem. Another dangerous group roaming the land were the therocephalians. Although generally smaller than gorgonopsids, they were still deadly hunters with sharp teeth and powerful jaws. Some scientists even believe certain species evolved venomous bites, potentially making them the first venomous land vertebrates in history. One especially frightening predator was Moschirinus, a jaguar-sized hunter with an oversized head filled with razor-sharp teeth, capable of crushing prey with brutal force. The rivers and wetlands were equally horrifying. Crocodile-like reptiles prowled shallow waters, while armored predators stalked muddy shorelines. Giant amphibians resembling monstrous salamanders waded beneath the surface, launching sudden ambushes against animals approaching rivers to drink. Almost every environment on land had something waiting to kill you. Yet predators were not the only danger. Earth itself was beginning to turn hostile. Temperatures during the late Permian averaged around 35 degrees Celsius, creating unbearable heat across much of Pangaea. Massive deserts expanded near the equator, while severe droughts dried rivers and forests. Huge mountain ranges blocked rainfall from reaching the interior regions of the supercontinent, producing endless dry landscapes where survival became increasingly difficult. Even surviving the predators did not guarantee survival. Then conditions became even worse. Deep beneath Siberia, volcanic eruptions known today as the Siberian Traps began tearing through Earth crust. Lava flooded across enormous distances while toxic gases filled the atmosphere. The planet slowly entered environmental collapse. And then Earth entered the worst extinction event in its history. Forests vanished, oxygen levels dropped, and countless species disappeared forever within a geological instant. The terrifying world that once belonged to the gorgonopsids was collapsing around them, proving that even the most powerful predators could not escape the unstoppable violence of changing Earth. Then came the final catastrophe. Deep beneath Siberia, gigantic volcanic eruptions tore open the Earth for thousands of years. Rivers of lava spread across enormous regions, covering landscapes beneath layers of molten rock and ash. These eruptions formed what scientists now call the Siberian Traps, one of the largest volcanic events in planetary history. But the lava itself was only the beginning of the disaster. The atmosphere soon became poisoned with massive amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur gases. Oxygen levels dropped, while global temperatures rapidly increased. Acid rain fell across forests and rivers, destroying plant life and poisoning ecosystems. Toxic air spread across Pangaea, while the ozone layer weakened, exposing life to deadly ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Earth had become almost uninhabitable. Ironically, the oceans were still safer than land. Water protected many animals from the brutal heat and harmful radiation above the surface. In some regions, ocean temperatures became similar to a warm jacuzzi rather than a boiling death trap. Although marine life suffered terribly, the seas still offered slightly better conditions than the burning continents covered with predators, droughts, and volcanic chaos. Earlier extinction events had already reduced many giant marine predators, leaving prehistoric oceans strangely calm compared to later eras. Meanwhile, predators on land evolved rapidly and spread across entire continents. Extreme temperatures hit the dry interior of Pangaea much harder than the oceans because water absorbed and distributed heat more effectively. This created a shocking reversal where land became deadlier than the sea. This may have been the only time in Earth's history where entering the water actually improved your chances of survival. Nearly 83% of all genera disappeared during this extinction event, making it the deadliest biological collapse Earth has ever experienced. The late Permian reminds us that Earth is constantly changing. Dominant species can disappear surprisingly quickly, and entire ecosystems can collapse when environmental conditions spiral out of control. Nature does not need dinosaurs to become terrifying, and long before the dinosaurs ruled the planet, Earth had already gone through hell once before. If you enjoyed this journey into prehistoric Earth, you will love the next video exploring the deadliest ocean predator that ever haunted ancient seas alive. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the safest place on Earth can be the one you fear the most.